Okay, guys, just want to get started with using the software. Just for the site back here, I just added a header, quick header, and a background to it. I hope you can see the software. Um, when you open the software, this is what it looks like. Now, you won't have, these are all projects that I've started. You won't have anything here, okay, when you open the software. I'm going to go through the layout. Okay, so I'm going to go through each section of what you're looking at. Okay, now you can maximize this, but if I do that now, it'll go outside the recording area. So this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so again, this is the project area that's going to show you all of your projects that you have running. This area is an area that shows the latest verified links or URLs, and what that means is that the software has verified that your link is put on a site and is pointing back to your site. Okay, so what it means is it's a verified live link. Okay, let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do right off the bat is set your options. And you do that by clicking the link or the button here that says options. When you open the settings, this is what you're going to see. Now, these are different tabs. Okay, so you're going to be starting out on the submission tab. Okay, and that's what all the settings here are for submissions. Okay, the next tab is CAPTCHA settings, indexing, filters, and then advanced. We're not going to be using the advanced that often, so that'll be maybe a later video. Okay, so let's set the settings for submission. The first option is threads. Threads to use means how many actions do you want the software to be running at the same time. Now, if you have a really powerful computer, if you can run more threads. If you're using a or a VPS, you can run higher threads. Okay. Normally, if you have just basically a basic PC, you're going to be running in between 10 and 20 threads. I recommend that you start out with 10 threads unless you got a high-powered PC. Okay, so start out with 10 and you can move it up to 20, but you want to be careful because it uses CPU usage, memory usage, things like that. Okay, your next two options are going to be set by default checked. You can just leave those the way they are. Okay, you can leave pretty much all this at default. Okay, in this area, it's talking about using proxies. So let's go over this area. Okay, so there are basically two types of proxies, and it's going to be public proxies or private proxies, or a virtual private network, which is something like HMA. Okay, so but don't worry about that right now. So you're going to have public or private proxies. Obviously, having private proxies are the best way to go. Okay, now GSA can automatically scrape public proxies for you, which is free, but you're going to have a lower success rate. Okay, so what this is asking you right here in this area where these checkboxes are, it's asking you what type of proxies do you want to use for certain actions. Okay, where it says search engines, what that means is scraping. So the software scrapes content or URLs from search engines. And it's asking you, do you want to use public proxies or private proxies? If you don't want to purchase private proxies and you're going to use public proxies, then you would only want to use public proxies on the scraping, which is search engines. Okay, if you have private proxies, just go ahead and use private proxies for everything. But if you're going to use public proxies for anything, scraping is your best bet. You don't want to use public proxies if on submissions or PR checking. Okay, you want to use private proxies. Now, like I said, if you don't, it's well worth to spend the money to get private proxies. But if you don't, you can have you can use public proxies, and we'll go into the configuration for that in just a second. So let's say that you want to use private proxies. Let's go ahead and set this up for that. So all we're going to do is click on Configure. Okay, this is your proxy list. Now yours will be blank. You won't have anything in this area. I have my proxies in here now. So what you would want to do is click on Add Proxy. You will normally do just fine with 10 semi-private proxies. So if you use BuyProxies, which is who I use, buyproxies.org, they will give you a list of proxies. You can buy 10, 20, 30. Usually you can get away with just buying 10 private proxies, okay? So what you would do is when you purchase those proxies, they're going to give you a list of those in a certain way. So what you would do is just copy your proxies from wherever you purchased them from. Usually they give you them in this format: host, which is the actual IP, port, login, and password. So copy those to your clipboard, and then you would click on Import from Clipboard. You can also import your proxies from a file. Once you import those, you'll see them in this area. It's a good idea to go ahead and test them to make sure they're working. So what you would do is click on Test, and then you can just select All. And it will, usually it's a good idea just to test them against Google search. Okay, so when you click that, it will test your private proxies just to make sure they work for you. Okay, so when you're using private proxies, the next thing you want to do is go to Options. You don't want to have GSA search for public proxies if you're using private proxies, so you want to make sure this is unchecked. Okay, now these will be checked by default. Okay, I keep this one unchecked because I don't want to disable private proxies if they're down because they come back up. So unchecked here, these three checked, and then click OK. Once you have that configured, you're going to come back here. Now this is how I set this up. All of these are going to be private, okay? And I'm going to use them on search engines, which is the scraping. Okay, I'm going to make sure to set a custom time, wait time of 60 seconds. If you have many proxies, then you can get away with lowering that, but I recommend leaving it at 60. I'm going to use the private proxies for submissions and PR checking. I'm not going to use proxies for verification or email checking. Okay, once you have those set, click OK. Next, we're going to go into CAPTCHA. Okay, so in this field, you're going to see CAPTCHA services. Now, you won't see anything here because you have to add them first. They are in order. When you add them, they will be in order of what you want the software to use first. Now, the number one best option for this is to use GSA CAPTCHA Breaker for your first option. That is a paid software. So if you do purchase that software, that will be your first option. So how to add CAPTCHA services, you would click Add. And then you get a list of all the different kinds of CAPTCHA services that you can use. Again, if you have GSA CAPTCHA Breaker, that will be your first option. Okay, so that's going to be your first service if you have it. So you would just click that. Now you want to bring this up. Now you won't have anything here because you haven't put anything in yet. I put in Death by CAPTCHA and Bypass CAPTCHA. So what I'm going to do is, this should be highlighted. I'm going to go move that up all the way to the first. Okay, if you do not have GSA CAPTCHA Breaker, if you don't want to buy that, you can use CAPTCHA services. My recommendation is to use Death by CAPTCHA and then Bypass CAPTCHA as your second option. It is not required to have first, second, or third options. You can only use one if you'd like, but it's a good idea to have two if you can. A first service and then a backup service. Okay, so I'm going to delete Capture Breaker for right now. And so what this is saying right here is I want the software to use death by CAPTCHA and then bypass CAPTCHA for the secondary service if death by CAPTCHA goes down. Okay, so my settings for either death by CAPTCHA or bypass CAPTCHA or any other CAPTCHA service you use is I usually do a retry of 2. I check this box and put this at 2 and put this at 10. And then I usually check for only do follow links. Okay. The next option is indexing. GSA has the option to send your links to different indexing services. These are not required by no means. They're not required at all. So what this is going to do is you can leave this all on the default settings. Now if you want to use a indexing service, which is a paid service, then you can use any of the ones that you see here. Okay. Otherwise, just leave it at default. Your next option or setting is filter. What this is a list of URLs that is updated automatically by the software as malware sites or bad sites. It will keep this updated for you. Okay, so as soon as if it finds URLs that are malware sites or are on a blacklist, it will add them here. So you don't need to make any changes here other than just to make sure that this is checked. Okay, you want to make sure that this box is checked. Okay, those are the settings, and now we can click OK. Okay, so in the next video we will get started with setting up your campaign or project.